Hi there, this is Zach Thornton. I'm here to talk about our Lab 2, particularly Part 2 of the Biomechanics Lab, looking at length tension relationship of the wrist extensors and flexors. First, some background on this. What we're looking at is how much force a patient is able to produce and muscle recruitment for given positions. This is useful to look at for how to position a person during rehabilitation. And then also that the force a muscle produces is affected by position as well as motor unit recruitment and such. A useful facet of this is active insufficiency, or when a biarticulate muscle is placed on stretch at one attachment while producing a force at the other, that produced force will be diminished. So the purpose of this lab was to assess the percent of maximum voluntary contraction as well as force an individual could produce on a hand dynamometer and to determine which position produced the highest recruitment and force. Of the four study positions, we believe that long grip with elbow at 90 degrees will produce the highest force and muscle recruitment, while maximal wrist flexion will produce the least amount of force. 8 subjects were recruited from the DPT class of 2021 from Regis, ages ranging from 22 years of age to 35. Mean being 26.5 years of age, plus or minus 4.84 years. Biological sex at birth was luckily an even split between males and females. Inclusion and exclusion criteria is listed on the poster. Now, for the methods of this, first we had a standardized position to get our percentages. That patient was placed at elbow with 90 degrees and hand dynamometer grip being adjusted to first pip. Patient then maximally contracted for 5 seconds with electrodes placed on the muscle bellies to give us the EMG recording while the dynamometer gave us the force. This was again repeated in the 4 looked at positions, with the first 2 being the hand dynamometer being at the longest, then shortest grip with elbow at 90 degrees. Then the next 2 positions were with the hand dynamometer being in standard grip, but the wrist being in maximal extension, and then the wrist being in maximal flexion. This information was taken from it with the peak force and muscle activation, then being normalized against the standard grip to give us our means and standard deviations, which is then going to be the error bars, the wide-ranging error bars in our graph. What we found was that force was found to be significantly reduced in maximal wrist flexion as expected, although when we were looking at force and extensor recruitment, this was found to be highest in the long grip. What threw off our hypothesis was that the short hand grip produced the highest wrist flexor recruitment. Now, I suspect this is due to the short hand grip making it hard to produce a contraction, so people were likely to move their wrists in an attempt to facilitate a stronger contraction of such. So the long hand grip producing the largest force and extensor recruitment was a sensible outcome, with the highest force and muscle recruitment usually being at 20% beyond the joint's resting position due to passive tensive structures starting to contribute, while the wrist flexor being the least amount of force, again, makes sense due to active insufficiency inhibiting that role, with the length tension curve being at the most unfortunate position to produce force. Now, this information is clinically relevant as this allows us to figure out where it is best to place a patient for rehabilitation goals, such as if they are struggling to produce a contraction, we may place them in a more resting or slightly lengthened position to facilitate a stronger contraction and motor unit recruitment. However, if we're trying to isolate a muscle, then active insufficiency is worthwhile to look at, as it will inhibit muscles that may otherwise participate within the rehabilitation exercise, allowing us to really focus in upon the target muscle.